The outer mining colony had always been a quiet place, far away from the busy star systems and trade routes. People lived simple lives there. They worked in the mines, repaired machines, and raised their families under the soft glow of the twin moons. For years, nothing dangerous had ever happened. The colony had no soldiers, no strong defense, and no reason to believe trouble would ever come. But one cold evening, everything changed, and life on the colony would never be the same again. It began with a strange sound on the long-range scanners, a sound no one had heard before. The communication officers in the control tower first thought it was a glitch, maybe a broken sensor or some background cosmic noise. But within minutes, they realized it was something else, something huge, something moving directly toward the colony. Before they could send a warning to the towns below, the sky turned dark as shadows filled the horizon. Ships, dozens of them, appeared above the atmosphere. They were black, sharp, and shaped like blades. No one recognized their design, but the fear they brought was instantly understood. The raiders had arrived. The first attack was sudden and merciless. Energy blasts rained down on the mining fields, destroying equipment and burning through the ground. People screamed and ran in all directions, trying to escape the chaos. Families were separated in the panic. Houses shook from the force of the explosions. Without military defenses, the colony stood as helpless as a small village facing a giant hurricane. The raiders moved fast. They wanted supplies, resources, and most of all, control. Anyone who resisted was eliminated without hesitation. Inside the control tower, alarms blared loudly. Officers scrambled between stations, desperately trying to contact other colonies or any nearby ship that could help. But the raiders had jammed the main communication systems. Every attempt to send a message ended in static. The colony's internal network flickered on and off, making it impossible to warn many areas. The raiders had planned everything carefully. They knew the colony was isolated, unguarded, and vulnerable. They struck with perfect timing. Among the officers was Lieutenant Aaron Hale, a young but determined communications specialist. He had grown up on Earth but came to this colony with hopes of a peaceful life. Now, he was watching everything fall apart. Smoke rose from the settlements below, and each second brought more destruction. Aaron knew they were running out of time. If the raiders reached the control tower, there would be no one left to send a distress call. He searched through the failing equipment, trying to find even a single open frequency that wasn't blocked. Outside, the sounds of chaos grew louder. The raiders were landing ground units, spreading through the colony like fire. People were dragged from their shelters, some taken prisoner, others hurt or worse. Every scream echoed through the metal walls of the tower. Aaron felt his hands shake, but he forced himself to keep working. He understood one thing clearly. If he didn't manage to send an SOS, no one would ever know what happened here. The colony would simply disappear from the galaxy. He tried the emergency transmitter, but it was heavily jammed. He tried the backup relay, sparked and died in front of him. He checked the long-range dish. Its rotation system was melted from the attack. Each failed attempt made his heart sink. But he refused to give up. The raiders might destroy the colony, but they would not erase its final voice. There had to be a way to send a signal out. Then he remembered something. Deep in the storage vaults beneath the control tower was an old prototype transmitter, a relic from the early days of space exploration. No one had used it in years because it was slow, unstable, and required manual alignment. But unlike the modern systems, it might not be affected by the raiders' jamming technology. It was a last hope option. But right now, last hope was all they had. Without wasting another second, Aaron sprinted down the metal stairs toward the vaults. Lights flickered as he ran, and the ground shook again and again from explosions outside. Dust fell from the ceiling. At any moment, the raiders could break into the tower. When he finally reached the vault door, he pushed it open and searched through the rows of old equipment until he found the transmitter covered in dust, dented but still intact. He dragged it to the center of the room, coughing from the dust and the smoke that had started to seep into the lower levels. His fingers moved quickly, connecting wires, activating the power core, and aligning the dish manually by rotating a stiff, rusted wheel. The machine vibrated, humming weakly like a tired engine. It wasn't much, but it was working. Aaron quickly began recording the distress message, but before he could finish, a loud crash echoed from above. He froze. The raiders were inside the tower. Heavy footsteps pounded down the hallways. He knew he had only seconds left, heart racing. He completed the recording, his voice trembling but clear. He attached footage captured from the colony's surviving cameras, burning buildings, frightened civilians, raider ships descending like monsters in the sky. He pressed send. At first, nothing happened. The transmitter glowed faintly, then dimmed, then glowed again. Aaron held his breath. The machine groaned, shook, and finally released a pulse of energy. A single beam of data shot upward through the damaged ceiling, piercing the atmosphere and escaping into space. The message was sent. Just as the transmitter completed its cycle, the vault door burst open. Raiders stormed in, their armor reflecting the dim red lights. Aaron stepped back, knowing he could not escape. But he also knew something more important. His job was done. Even if he didn't survive, the The message was out there, traveling across star systems, searching for anyone who would listen. Searching for Earth, he felt a strange calmness fill him. He had saved the truth. Someone would know what happened here. Someone would come. The raiders closed in on him, their weapons raised. He closed his eyes for a moment and thought about home, about Earth's blue skies and warm sunlight. Then everything went silent. Far beyond the colony, the SOS signal traveled through the stars, jumping across communication relays, passing satellites, and bouncing off deep space receivers. Many species ignored it immediately. Some dismissed it as another lost colony falling victim to raiders. Others didn't care enough to investigate. But the signal didn't stop. It kept going until it reached the one place where it truly mattered. The Terran Coalition's central communication hub. When Earth's sensors detected the message, alarms lit up the control room. Officers gathered around as the footage played on giant screens. They saw the burning colony, the terrified people, the cruelty of the raiders, and the final moments of a brave communication officer who risked everything to send the message. The room grew silent. No one spoke, but every person watching felt the same cold anger rising inside them. Humans did not ignore SOS signals. It was a rule as old as the first space colony. If someone called for help, Earth responded, always. The officers exchanged grim looks. Everyone knew what the next steps would be. The Deathworlder fleet would move. And when humanity moved, the galaxy trembled. The final image from the SOS flickered for a moment on the screen. A burning skyline and the desperate cry of a dying colony. And right then, the Terran Coalition made its decision. One that would change the fate of every raider ship still orbiting that shattered world. Someone whispered the words that echoed through the room like thunder. They called for help, and we will answer. The SOS had been heard, and the Deathworlders were coming. The Terran Coalition's High Command building was usually calm, even during minor emergencies. It was the heart of Earth's military strategy, a place where decisions were made with patience, logic, and careful planning. But on the day the SOS signal arrived, the atmosphere changed instantly. The long hallways filled with echoes of rushed footsteps, urgent voices, and the sharp beeping of activated alarms. Officers looked tense as the emergency broadcast flashed across every screen. Everyone felt that something terrible had happened, even before they saw the details. Inside the main briefing chamber, a circular room filled with holographic displays, the highest-ranking commanders of the Terran military gathered around a central table. Their faces were pale, their eyes fixed on the massive screen that replayed the raw footage sent from the colony. Flames devoured buildings, civilians ran for safety, raider ships patrolled the skies like predators waiting to strike again, and in the final seconds, they watched the brave officer ruin hell risk his life to send the message. Don't one spoke for several long moments. The only sound in the room was the crackling static of the recording as it looped. The pain and desperation in the video weighed heavily on every person present. They had seen attacks before, but this one felt different. It was not just an assault, it was a slaughter. Admiral Seraphine Ward, the commander of the entire Deathworlder fleet, stood at the front of the room. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and a calmness that came from decades of surviving impossible battles. She had led humans through wars against pirates, rogue artificial intelligences, and hostile alien empires, but even she seemed shaken by the brutality on the screen. She turned toward the others and spoke in a firm, steady voice that cut through the room like a blade. We all know what this means. A human colony has been attacked without warning, civilians have been murdered, and their last message begged for help. She paused, looking at each officer one by one. We do not ignore SOS calls, ever. A quiet murmur spread across the chamber as the officers nodded. Everyone knew the ancient rule of humanity's space expansion. If someone sends a distress call, Earth responds. The rule had been created hundreds of years earlier, after humanity had learned the cost of ignoring those in danger. It had become a promise, not only to humans but to every species that sought protection under the Terran banner. General Marcus Voss, the head of planetary defense, leaned forward. He was a heavy-built man with a scar running across his jaw, a reminder of the brutal battles he had fought in his younger years. We have confirmation that the raiders responsible belong to the Scourge Syndicate. They've hit small colonies before, but never a human one. This is deliberate. Another officer, Admiral Kira Sundholm, responded. They must not have known it was a human colony, or they thought we would be too far to respond in time. General Voss clenched his fists. Then we show them how wrong they were. The room agreed. The decision was forming even before the vote began. But Earth did not act emotionally. Every decision required precision. Admiral Ward activated the holographic map at the center of the table. A glowing star chart appeared, showing the colony's location deep in the outer rim. The raider ships formed a blockade around the planet, and the surrounding region showed no friendly forces. The colony had been defenseless, isolated, and far from any trade route, the perfect target. But Earth had the speed and power to cross that distance faster than any other species in the galaxy. We can reach the colony in 12 hours if we deploy the Deathworlder fleet immediately, Admiral Ward said. Our FTL drives are stronger and faster than anything the raiders have. General Voss nodded. and when we arrive, we end them permanently. But there was still one more step. The political council had to approve any major fleet deployment before anyone could worry about that. The holographic display flickered again. The door to the chamber opened, and President Elias Cormac of the Terran Coalition entered the room. He had come the moment he received the alert. His expression was unreadable, but the tension in his jaw told everyone that the decision had already been made. He approached the table, watching the burning colony footage one last time. The cries of civilians, the destruction of homes, the desperation of the final message, everything replayed in his mind. When the screen went dark, he took a deep breath and spoke with a voice full of resolve. "Send the fleet." Every officer straightened. The chamber felt the shift instantly the moment when a decision becomes action. Not a single person objected. Not a single person hesitated. The Deathworlders would move. President Cormac continued, "Make it clear, this is not a rescue mission alone. This is retaliation. The Scourge Syndicate attacked our people. They destroyed our colony and slaughtered innocents." His eyes hardened. "We will respond with full force." The room erupted with coordinated activity. Officers rushed to their stations, sending commands through secured channels. Lights flashed along the walls as activation codes were transmitted. Orders moved rapidly through the entire Terran military network. Within minutes, the Deathworlder fleet began coming to life. Massive dreadnoughts capable of leveling continents powered up their reactors. Strike cruisers armed with precision rail cannons prepared their targeting systems. Medical ships readied for wounded survivors. Stealth vessels activated their cloaking fields. Thousands of elite soldiers gathered in docks and hangars, boarding troop carriers with disciplined efficiency. These were not ordinary soldiers. These were Deathworlders, humans trained to survive environments so hostile that most alien species could not even walk on Earth without protective suits. They were feared across the galaxy not because they were cruel, but because they were unstoppable. In the deepest level of the fleet's main carrier, the elite unit known as the Black Talons assembled. Their commander, Captain Adrian Colt, a man known for leading missions that should have been impossible, stood calmly as his squad checked their weapons. His expression never changed, but the sight of the SOS footage had ignited a cold fury inside him. He had seen many tragedies in the galaxy, but watching civilians being hunted pushed him past the point of patience. "We're not just rescuing survivors," he told his team. "We're sending a message." One of his soldiers asked, "What kind of message?" Captain Colt replied, "That attacking humans is the last mistake the Syndicate will ever make." On another ship, Commander Lyra Vance, pilot of one of Earth's fastest tactical fighters, sealed her helmet and whispered quietly to herself, "Hold on, we're coming." She didn't know if anyone on the colony was still alive, but she hoped. Hope was enough to fly faster as preparations continued. The fleet's command AI Argus calculated battle probabilities, analyzing the raider forces and predicting their defenses. Its conclusion was simple and chilling. Outcome: raider fleet destruction likely, human casualties minimal, mission success probability 96.7%. The numbers only increased the determination of the commanders back in the High Command briefing room. Admiral Seraphine Ward sent out the final activation order. Her voice echoed through every ship in the fleet. "This is Admiral Ward. The SOS has been confirmed. The colony has fallen under enemy attack. Deathworlder fleet, prepare for hyperspace departure. You know the mission. You know what is at stake." Then, quieter but stronger, she added, "And you know why we fight." Across the fleet, tens of thousands of voices answered as one. For humanity. The entire shipyard shook as engines roared to life. The glowing blue-white energy of Earth's hyperspace drives illuminated the surrounding space. In one unified burst of power, the Deathworlder fleet launched forward, stretching into beams of light as they jumped into hyperspace. Earth watched them disappear into the distance. Children in cities looked up at the sky, seeing the bright streaks of the fleet leaving atmosphere. People on Earth, on Mars, on the moons of Jupiter all felt a mix of pride and sorrow. They knew what the fleet was capable of. They knew what was about to happen. But, above all, they knew this: someone had cried for help. Someone had trusted humanity to answer, and humanity never broke that trust. As the fleet traveled through hyperspace, every soldier, every pilot, and every commander carried the memory of the SOS deep inside them. They would not stop. They would not hesitate. And when they arrived at the colony, the raiders would learn the price of attacking Earth. The order had been given. The Deathworlders were coming. The Deathworlder fleet moved through hyperspace like a silent storm. Outside the ship windows, the universe looked stretched, twisted, and glowing. It was beautiful, but no one on board had the time to admire it. Every soldier, every pilot, every commander knew exactly why they were traveling, because a colony had cried for help, and humanity was going to answer with everything it had. Inside the main flagship, the TSF Vanguard, the atmosphere was thick with determination. The halls buzzed with the sound of armored boots, humming engines, and constant status reports echoing from communication panels. Soldiers walked with straight backs and focused eyes, even though most of them had seen countless battles. This mission carried a different weight. They had seen the footage. They had heard the screams from the colony. And deep inside, every one of them felt the same burning anger. Captain A. Colt, leader of the elite Black Talon unit, stood inside the strategy room studying the holographic map of the Raider forces. His armor was polished, his helmet tucked under his arm, and his expression serious. He watched the small red dots representing Raider ships blocking the colony. Next to him stood Lieutenant Mara Jensen, his second-in-command, who was analyzing enemy patterns. "They have a full blockade around the colony," she said quietly. "No gaps, no weak spots." Adrian nodded slowly. "They're confident." Mara looked up at him. "Do you think they know it was a human colony they hit?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "If they do, they don't understand what that means." Mara's eyes hardened. "They will." Just then, the doors slid open and Admiral Seraphine Ward entered with a calm but determined look. Everyone straightened immediately. She walked to the center of the room, watching the map as it rotated slowly. "We will arrive soon," she said. "We need to be prepared the moment we exit hyperspace." Adrian stepped forward. "My unit is ready, Admiral." She gave a small nod. She trusted him not because of his rank, but because he had proven himself in situations even worse than this. Yet this mission felt personal to all of them. Admiral Ward turned to the room. "Make sure every soldier knows what they are fighting for." That colony had families, children, workers, innocent people. Many of them may still be alive, hiding, surviving however they can. She paused. "We are their only chance." Her words struck every listener deeply. They all knew she was right. Meanwhile, deeper inside the fleet, hundreds of soldiers sat in the troop carrier hangars. They checked their weapons, plasma rifles, reinforced combat blades, and modular defensive shields. The air smelled of oils, metal, and anticipation. One young soldier named Ryo Tanaka whispered to the teammate sitting next to him, "Do you think anyone is still alive on the colony?" His teammate, an older Marine named Holt, didn't answer immediately. Holt had fought in dozens of battles. He had learned that sometimes the truth was harsh, but this time he placed a firm hand on Ryo's shoulder. "We hope they are, and if they are, we're going to bring them home." Ryo nodded, taking a deep breath. On the medical ship Aurora, doctors prepared emergency supplies. Medical pods hummed as they powered up, ready to hold wounded survivors. The lead medic, Dr. Ilara Wynn, checked her equipment again and again. She watched the SOS footage earlier, and the memory of the wounded colonists haunted her. She whispered to herself, "Please hold on, we are coming." Across the fleet, pilots trained in simulation pods, preparing for intense dogfights. One of them, Commander Lyra Vance, stared at the projection of Raider ships. She had flown through asteroid fields, survived missile storms, and fought in space battles where death was one mistake away. But this mission made her heart beat faster. She felt a responsibility not just as a pilot, but as a human being. As she exited the simulator, her flight partner shouted, "How's the prep?" She replied, "Fast enough. When we get there, I want to be the first one into the fight." Her partner nodded. "We all do." Time moved slowly inside hyperspace, even though the fleet was traveling faster than light. Hours felt like days. Everyone kept checking the countdown timer, waiting for the moment when the fleet would drop back into normal space. During these hours, the soldiers talked quietly among themselves. Stories spread, stories of previous colonies that had nearly fallen. Stories of survivors rescued at the last second. But the SOS from this colony hit different. It carried too much pain, too much fear. And the final message from Aaron Hale, the officer who sent it, echoed in every mind. "If anyone hears this, please help us." Some soldiers clenched their fists when they remembered those words. Others whispered silent promises. Humanity had changed over centuries, becoming stronger, more united, but one thing never changed. They would never abandon their own. In the command deck of the Vanguard, Admiral Ward watched the hyperspace corridor outside. It glowed bright blue, swirling endlessly. She rarely allowed emotion to show, but even she felt a heavy pressure in her chest. She thought about the people on the colony who might be hiding in ruined buildings, hoping the raiders wouldn't find them. She imagined parents shielding their children. She imagined wounded civilians trapped under debris, praying someone would come. "Just a little longer," she whispered. The fleet's AI Argos spoke in its calm digital tone. "Admiral, we are approaching the colony's star system. ATA 5 minutes. The words triggered a spark in every ship across the fleet. Pilots strapped into their seats. Soldiers gripped their weapons. Commanders took their positions. The engines grew louder, glowing brighter as the ships prepared to exit hyperspace. Adrian Colt tightened the straps on his armor. He could feel the anticipation building in his chest. Mara Jensen stood next to him, equally focused. "Do you ever get used to this feeling?" she asked. "No," he replied, "and I hope I never do." Down below, in the troop bay, Ryo Tanaka whispered a small prayer. Holt checked his rifle and said, "Remember, kid, stick with the team. Don't try to be a hero alone. Heroes are the ones who make sure others survive." Ryo nodded. All across the fleet, people felt the same shift, the calm before the storm. Then, with a sudden jolt, hyperspace collapsed around them. Stars snapped back into focus. The darkness of space appeared, and right in front of the fleet, the colony came into view. What they saw made every heart freeze. The planet was covered in smoke. Fires burned across the surface. The skies were filled with raider ships, hundreds of them forming a deadly shield around the world. They moved like vultures over a dying body. Some ships fired at the surface, others patrolled near the highest orbit. Larger vessels glowed with stolen energy. The Deathworlder fleet had not arrived early. They had arrived in the middle of hell. Inside the command deck, Admiral Ward's eyes narrowed. All ships, battle formation. Activate shields. Begin targeting. Argos displayed dozens of red enemy markers. Adrian Colt looked at the destruction and felt a cold rage inside him. Mara whispered, "They destroyed everything." He answered quietly, "No, not everything." Because now, the Deathworlders were here. On the medical ship, Dr. Alara Wynn's breath caught in her throat. "We need to get down there quickly." In the cockpit of her fighter, Commander Lyra Van Screenshop, determined, ready for war. Finally, across the fleet, soldiers braced themselves as alarms blared. The time for waiting was over. Admiral Ward stood tall, eyes burning with purpose. "Deathworlder fleet," she said, "engage." The engines roared. The weapons powered up. Thousands of trained warriors, prepared for battle. And the galaxy would soon learn what it meant when humanity answered a cry for help. The journey through hyperspace was over. Now came the storm. When the Deathworlder fleet arrived, there was no moment of silence, no pause, no breath. The raiders saw the flash of light in the sky as the human ships dropped out of hyperspace, and within seconds, chaos exploded across the battlefield. The colony's orbit, which had been controlled completely by the raiders just moments before, suddenly became a place of fire, noise, and unstoppable force. The first human dreadnought didn't wait for formal warnings or negotiations. It fired a massive energy beam straight through one of the raider carriers, cutting the enemy ship in half like it was made of paper. Every human ship followed instantly, unleashing missiles, plasma rounds, railgun shots, and directed energy that lit the entire space around the planet like a new sun. The Deathworlders had arrived, and they didn't come to talk. They came to destroy. Inside the raider flagship, alarms screamed as crew members panicked. They never expected a human fleet this size, this fast, or this deadly. Their commander, a scarred alien with jagged teeth, shouted orders, but even he looked terrified as he watched the destruction on the visual screens. Human ships were moving with frightening precision, coordinated, controlled, and merciless. He screamed, "Retreat, retreat now." But it was too late. Commander Lyra Vance led the first wave of fighters. Her small tactical jet spun past enemy fire like it was dancing. She shot down 3 raider fighters in the first 30 seconds, weaving between debris and explosions. Her voice was calm but sharp as she spoke into her comms. "Valkyrie Squadron, follow me. Break their left side flank." Her squad responded in perfect sync, diving toward a cluster of raider ships trying to regroup. Missiles streaked through space, detonating in bright white flashes. Lyra's ship cut straight through the center, firing as she flew. She whispered to herself, "For the colony." Meanwhile, on the Vanguard, Admiral Seraphine Ward stood on the command deck as blasts lit up the sky outside. Her posture was steady. She didn't flinch, didn't blink. Her voice was calm as she issued orders. "Target their engines first. Don't let any of them escape. No survivors among raider vessels." Her second officer nodded sharply. "Understood." Weapons locked. The fleet followed her command. They didn't aim for random destruction, they aimed for finality. Every raider engine they hit sent an enemy ship spiraling helplessly into space. The raiders tried to form a defensive wall, but it collapsed immediately under the pressure of the Deathworlder assault. At the same time, in the troop carriers below deck, Captain Adrian Colt prepared for the ground assault. His Black Talon unit stood in rows, helmets on, weapons ready, hearts burning with fury. The carrier shook as explosions erupted outside, but none of them looked afraid. Adrian's voice was dark and steady as he spoke. "We drop straight into the colony ruins. Clear enemies. Protect civilians. Do not stop. Do not hesitate." His soldiers nodded as one. Lieutenant Mara Jensen checked her gear, tightened her gloves, and told her captain, "Sir, I've been waiting for this." Adrian gave a short nod. "We all have." The doors of the troop carrier glowed red as they heated from atmospheric pressure. Then, with a metallic blast, the drop hatches opened, and dozens of armored soldiers jumped from the carrier, falling through the burning atmosphere like meteors. The ground assault had begun. On the surface, the colony was a nightmare. Fires raged across destroyed buildings. Smoke choked the air. Raiders marched through the ruins, hunting for survivors. Civilians hid underground, behind shattered walls, inside broken vehicles, anywhere they could find shelter. A small group of survivors huddled inside the basement of a collapsed clinic. Among them was a mother holding her injured daughter, an old man trying to stay conscious, and others who had been hiding for days. They could faintly hear the sounds of battle in the sky. One man whispered, "Do you hear that? Something's happening." The mother held her child closer. "Please, let it be help." Outside, a raider soldier moved closer, scanning the area with a weapon. He didn't know what was coming from the sky. He didn't hear the whistling sound above. He didn't understand why the ground trembled. Then it happened. Adrian Colt landed directly behind him with a force that cracked the stone beneath his boots. Before the raider could react, Adrian struck him so hard the alien flew several meters away. More Deathworlders landed nearby, explosions bursting around them as they hit the ground. Mara's voice came through the comms, black talons on the ground. Engaging, Adrian looked around the burning ruins, eyes sharp and cold. Move out. The team advanced through the colony like a storm. Their armor took hits that would kill any normal soldier, but they kept pushing forward. Their rifles cut down raider troops with terrifying accuracy. Their training made them faster, stronger, and more relentless than any enemy on the field. A group of raiders tried to ambush them from behind a broken mining vehicle. Mara spotted them and shouted, "Left flank." Her team instantly opened fire. The ambush ended before it began. Smoke and sparks flew everywhere. While the Black Talons fought on the ground, the battle in orbit grew even more intense. Raider captains screamed in panic as one ship after another exploded under human fire. Their formations broke completely. Some tried to flee, but the Deathworlders didn't let them escape. The dreadnought TSF Helios fired a final massive beam, vaporizing two raider destroyers in one shot. Admiral Ward gave the command, "Push forward. Take them all." The human ships closed in, eliminating the rest of the raider blockade. In less than an hour, what had once been a powerful raider fleet had become scattered debris floating in space, dark back on the surface. Adrian Colt led his team deeper into the ruins. They found more survivors, injured miners lying under debris, children hiding behind metal panels, workers trapped in collapsed tunnels. The Deathworlders moved fast to rescue them while still fighting. At one point, they found the basement of the collapsed clinic where the mother and her child were hiding. Mara entered first, lowering her weapon when she saw the terrified civilians. "It's okay," she said gently. "We're here to help." The mother burst into tears. The little girl whispered, "Are you humans?" Mara smiled softly. "Yes, we came when we got your SOS when they carried the survivors out." The mother looked at the burning sky and said, "I thought no one would come," Adrian answered quietly. "We always come." But the battle wasn't over yet. Far across the colony, the largest raider stronghold still stood. It was a fortress built from stolen tech and surrounded by heavy weapons. From its center, a powerful energy shield rose like a dome, blocking airstrikes and ground assaults. It was the last raider stronghold, and the place where many captured colonists were being held. Admiral Ward saw it from space. "That shield needs to fall, and we need it fast." Down on the ground, Adrian Colt and Mara Jensen saw it too. Adrian's voice turned steel hard. "That's where they are. That's where we end this." The Deathworlders began charging toward the fortress, fighting through raider waves. Explosions shook the ground. The sky burned red. The smell of smoke and metal filled the air. The final battle of the colony was about to begin, and the raiders had no idea what kind of fury was coming for them. The human fleet, still surrounded by the drifting remains of the Kralax armada, starts to lower its weapons. For the first time in hours, the light of explosions stops flickering against the hulls of the warships. Only the soft glow of distant stars shines through the battlefield. Admiral Reeve slowly exhales, realizing he had been holding his breath without noticing. The final Kralax command signal had gone silent minutes earlier, and there was no doubt about what it meant. The war, at least this part of it, was over, but the silence does not bring comfort. Instead, it feels too heavy. The bridge crew of the flagship looks around at one another, unsure of how to react. They had won, yes, but what was actually won? Countless ships destroyed, entire fleets erased, and a species one that had chosen war now left with almost nothing. Even among the hardened soldiers of Earth, no one celebrates. Victory feels too dark for celebration. Reeve looks toward the screen that shows the no-secured colony world, the place where the SOS was sent. Small green patches of its forests and the blue shimmer of its oceans are visible. Saren, the alien who had begged for help, stands quietly near the communication console of the flagship. He has been watching the world too, but his expression is far from peaceful. This was his home, or at least the home of the refugees from his species. The colony itself had barely survived the Kralax attack. Many structures were destroyed, and thousands were gone. Even though the human fleet saved the planet, the loss is still painful. Reeve walks over to Saran and speaks gently. He knows the alien has been through more than most beings could bear. Saran turns, his large eyes reflecting both grief and gratitude. He says that his people had no idea humans could fight like this. They had heard stories, yes, but they never believed any species could hold such power. He admits that when he sent the SOS, he only expected a handful of ships, maybe escorts or patrol units. He never imagined something like the full Deathworlder fleet responding. Reeve answers him with honesty. He explains that when a human sees someone calling for help, especially someone weaker, they do not respond halfway. Humans come with everything they have. It doesn't matter who sends the message. It doesn't matter if the one calling is a stranger or from a species humans barely know. A cry for help is a cry for help. Reeve says that humans do not measure the worth of a life by the color of skin, the shape of a face, or the number of limbs. They react because someone is suffering. That is all that matters to a human. Sauron listens, and for the first time since the battle ended, he smiles. Not fully, not brightly, but enough to show that hope still exists inside him. He looks back at his colony, thinking of the people still alive, the children rescued, and the families saved at the last moment. He whispers that his people will never forget what humans did not for centuries, not even for generations. Stories of the Deathworlders will be told not as monsters, but as saviors. But even in the calm, work must continue. The human fleet begins scanning for any remaining threats. Medical ships move forward, preparing to land on the colony world. Their purpose now is to help the survivors, treat the wounded, and stabilize the planet's atmosphere after the bombardment. Reeve orders the fleet to start rescue operations immediately. Marines are sent down to help secure damaged buildings and search for anyone hiding in shelters. On the colony's surface, the first human boots touch the soil. The air is smoky, filled with dust, and the ground still shakes with occasional aftershocks from the battle. The Marines spread out, carefully helping Sauron's people out of rubble, giving them water and first aid. For many aliens, it is the first time they see humans this close. They were warned by stories that humans are terrifying, aggressive beings built for war. But what they see now surprises them. The humans who fought like unstoppable beasts in space are the same ones kneeling down to offer comfort, lifting heavy debris with their bare hands, and giving their own rations to starving refugees. Some refugees cry when they see their children being carried to safety by human soldiers. Some fall to their knees in relief. Some simply stare, unable to understand how a species so powerful could also be so gentle. It changes them. It changes everything they believed. Meanwhile, Reeve stays on the flagship, monitoring the situation. His officers give updates one after another: medical teams landing, engineering teams repairing power grids, communication towers being rebuilt. Every act of help restores something inside the colony and something inside Sauron too. The darkness left by the Kralax begins to lift. A few hours later, Reeve calls Sauron to the command deck again. He wants him to see something. On one of the screens, the colony's remaining government officials appear. They want to speak with the human fleet directly. The lead official, an elderly alien with a trembling voice, thanks humanity for their courage, their strength, and their compassion. He declares that, from this day forward, their people will stand with humans as allies, not because they are afraid, but because they have seen the truth. Humanity is dangerous only to those who bring harm. To the innocent, they are protectors. Reeve nods respectfully but tells them that alliances are not owed. Humans didn't come expecting payment or treaties. They answered the SOS because someone needed help, nothing more. But if an alliance grows from respect, not fear, then humanity will welcome it. Sauron feels a warmth in his chest. He had lost almost everything: his home, his family, his future. Yet now, he sees a way forward. A future rebuilt, not alone, but with the support of a species whose actions speak louder than legends. After the call ends, Reeve finally allows himself to rest. He steps away from the screens, removes his gloves, and rubs his tired eyes. The weight of taking a life, even the life of an enemy, is something no human ever fully gets used to. He understands that humans can be terrifying in war, even frightening. But deep inside, he also knows why they fight so fiercely. Humans know the value of life. They know fear, love, pain, and hope. They fight hard because they care deeply. That is the real reason the Deathworlders are so dangerous later. As the sun rises on the colony world, Sauron walks out of a temporary shelter and looks at the sky. Human ships hover gently above, shining like new stars. The smoke that once covered the horizon begins to clear. Children run outside, seeing peace for the first time in weeks. Adults gather supplies, repair broken structures, and help one another rebuild. Everywhere Sauron looks, he sees life returning. He hears laughter for the first time since the war began. Soft, fragile, but real. Sauron closes his eyes, letting the warmth of the sun touch his face. He remembers the moment he sent the SOS, his hands shaking, tears running down his cheeks, unsure if anyone would hear him. Now, standing here, he knows that message did not just save his people. It changed the galaxy's understanding of humanity forever. The humans did not come because they wanted glory. They did not come for resources or political advantage. They came because someone cried out in fear. And when humans hear a cry for help, something ancient and powerful awakens inside them. Something that will burn through any darkness to reach the one who is suffering. Sauron watches the sky one last time before returning to help his people. He knows he will tell this story one day, maybe to his future children, maybe to the next generation of his species. He will tell them how the Deathworlders came with unstoppable force, how they destroyed the Kralax without remorse, but also how they saved lives with compassion and patience. He will tell them that humanity is not just feared. They are respected, trusted, and remembered. He will say that when the galaxy looked away, humans looked closer. When others hesitated, humans acted. And when the Kralax tried to erase his people, it was humanity who stood between them and destruction. The story will always begin the same way. We sent an SOS, and the Deathworlders answered. And that answer brought hope, protection, and a second chance paid for with courage. fire, and the fierce heart of a species that refuses to let the innocent fall.